Hello, it is Anna Lagrange here from the Mindful Breastfeeding School, and this episode is all about oxytocin. Now, most people who work in breastfeeding, chest feeding support rave about this hormone. So oxytocin it's a hormone, so it's a chemical that's in the body. It's a neurotransmitter, so it takes messages around the body to be able to communicate to the body, the brain, the steps that need to happen next, but really quickly. So the reason we love oxytocin so much is because, number one, it is a feel-good hormone. When oxytocin is flowing in our bodies, we feel really good. It's also got reproductive elements to it. We need it for reproduction. And actually, I was chatting about this with my teen kids a little while ago. I was writing a essay on love for my positive psychology masters a few months ago, and we were talking about love and what's it for, and we were talking a little bit about oxytocin, and they really simplified it for me. It's such a good way of looking at it, is that if sex, if making babies, if having a mate, if you want to look at it from a mammalian point of view, wasn't enjoyable and wasn't fun, then it could really endanger the growth of us as a race. So it's important that we have feel-good hormones that are involved in the reproductive process. I really love that simplicity of it. And it's so true. Oxytocin is key to so many elements of our life, though, not just the making of babies and the feeding of babies, but also through our lifelong relationships and connections we make with other people as well. So oxytocin makes us feel good. It makes us feel calm. It makes us feel happy. It makes us feel safe and secure. And I just want to add there, for the majority of humans, for some people in some rare circumstances, they don't have a good feeling from oxytocin. And I don't have the time today or the expertise to talk about that in any great depth. I think it would be a great topic to speak with an expert on in the future. Although, like many hormonal, or all really hormonal women's health issues, there is a real lack of knowledge, a real lack of research, and therefore understanding in our hormones and how they impact our health. So back to oxytocin. So as well as having this feel-good nature to it, it also has these very physiological, practical functions in our reproductive lives. So as females, it is the hormone that we release when we orgasm. It is also the hormone that is involved in giving birth. So oxytocin, it makes the contraction of the uterus happen, so it contracts up, opening of the cervix, and helps the baby to be born. And in breastfeeding, it's also got like a squeezing function. So you've got the breast, and I often use the analogy of a broccoli, so the breast being like a broccoli, so the thick stem of the breast being the nipple, then where it branches out into the smaller stems being your ducts, and then the broccoli florets being your milk-making cells. So if you imagine each little spherical area of the broccoli being a milk-making cell, so they've got milk-making cells around the edge, of that sac, of that alveoli. The milk sits in the middle, and then there's a web of squeezing cells that kind of are bunched around the outside of that alveoli, of that circle of cells. And when oxytocin flows, that web squeezes the milk down from the milk-making cells, down the ducts, and out through the nipple for the baby. So again, oxytocin has that very squeezing function. The other wonderful thing about oxytocin is that it helps us to connect with others. And if we go back to my very kind of crude explanation of our hormones and our reproductive life, it makes us connected, it makes us fall in love. But actually just positive connections with other humans, especially those really deep, great conversations, those moments of connection you have with people can, mean that you release oxytocin. Oxytocin isn't always about reproduction. It can come from other experiences as well. It can come from eating a favorite food in an environment that we love. Studies have shown that by holding a warm drink, that warmth and the way we enjoy that experience can help us release oxytocin as well. So there's tons of oxytocin potential in our lives, but it's a really key hormone to understand, and the physiology of it to understand when we are supporting people who want to breast or breastfeed, and that's because the understanding of oxytocin, how it works, can really help, especially I believe in the beginning of that kind of learning to feed your baby time, which can be tricky. We always say at the Mindful Breastfeeding School that breastfeeding is natural and normal, but it is a learning curve. It's not necessarily something that you're just going to get straight away. And quite frankly, what other parts of your biological life are there? Thinking about developmentally the stages of life that we go through, such as walking, such as talking, such as those very transitional teen years. We don't expect ourselves just to get it and just to be able to do it straight away. We see our children and even ourselves often when we're going through those phases on a path, on a journey. We call that a growth mindset, understanding that it's going to take time. We need to watch and learn and then maybe try it a bit and then make quite a few mistakes before we eventually get it right. And I think that's a really good attitude to have when you're coming to feed your baby, because it is a learning curve. It's not something, yes, your baby has the reflexes ready to breastfeed, and your body is ready to breastfeed. Your body's ready to produce human milk for your baby, but it's a learning curve. It's a dance. It's something between two people that you need to figure out together, and it's always changing as well. So I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but what I'm trying to say is that is a great expectation to have when you're supporting people who are wanting to learn to feed their baby, or when you are somebody who is preparing to breastfeed or chest feed your baby, because having that expectation is going to leave plenty of space for discovery, allowing for things not necessarily to be easy and straightforward straight away, and it also enables you to more easily communicate with others about what's happening for you. And in that learning, understanding the role of oxytocin can be so empowering, and that's why it really is very much at the heart of a lot of our practical breastfeeding teaching that we have at the Mindful Breastfeeding School. So one of the things that I touched upon in the introductory episode of this podcast, do go back and have a listen to it if you would like to, episode 1, is about the autonomic nervous system. And I think it's really important that we understand that when we are in a relaxed autonomic nervous system, so when we are in what we might call rest and digest, or the parasympathetic nervous system, that our body is able to produce more oxytocin. Oxytocin is more likely to flow when we are calm, when we feel safe, when we feel looked after, when we feel supported. Oxytocin is more likely to flow. When we are in that fight, flight, freeze zone, so our sympathetic nervous system, oxytocin is less likely to flow. When we have the higher levels of our stress hormones, of cortisol and adrenaline, then it kind of counterbalances oxytocin, so it's harder for oxytocin to flow in those circumstances. So that's not to say to new parents, oh, don't be stressed, just calm down, just relax and things will work out better. There's nothing more annoying than that when you're having a hard time. But it's understanding that there are practices, tools, conversations even that can happen to encourage that flow of oxytocin even in challenging situations, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. So one of the things that we can do to help that flow of oxytocin is to think about the environment. There's a lot of talk in when people are preparing people for a birth to birth their baby around what the environment might look like. And of course, often in westernized society, in in hospital settings, in obstetric settings, often it's not calm, it's not, the lights aren't dim. It isn't an environment that's particularly conducive to the flow of oxytocin, but I know a lot of people work quite hard at putting that into their birth plan, into the environment where they're going to birth their baby. It's exactly the same with breastfeeding. And I think sometimes you might have that whole nicer environment. It might be something you're prioritizing, but then the baby's born and, the lights go on and baby's weighed on a hard plastic surface, or, there's a lot of busyness perhaps where, again, that isn't particularly conducive to the flow of oxytocin. So it's thinking beyond the birth. What can we add on to that birth plan? What can we add on to the knowledge for those parents around the flow of oxytocin that they can add into their environment so that there's a higher chance of that milk being able to flow easier because oxytocin is flowing in a better way? And the answer to that is to think about what helps us feel calm and comfortable and relaxed. So it might be continuing to listen to nice music. It might be keeping the lights low. It will be keeping the environment warm. It will be prioritising skin to skin, which I know is something that in UK certainly is prioritised whenever it's possible. It's not having too many people coming into the room, not lots of strangers or, even guests, visitors. And there's not a lot of visitors at the moment. I'm talking about this as we're in year 2 of the pandemic. But obviously previous to the pandemic, people might have lots of visitors coming after they'd had their baby. Not particularly conducive to the flow of oxytocin unless it's a particular visitor that makes you feel very safe, very loved and very supported, who is also supportive of the way you're choosing to feed your baby. So all those elements that I just talked about can obviously be created even more easily in the home environment. So absolutely should be a priority for parents to be to think about that environment that is going to be conducive to the flow of oxytocin, that's going to help support that breastfeeding, chest feeding relationship to develop during that learning phase. And again, it's very much thinking about, okay, there's the rest aspect, there's relaxation, there's skin to skin, but there's also having those comforts around you and feeling safe and secure, not feeling watched, not feeling criticized, not having anybody visit who may be uncomfortable about how the baby's being fed. One of the other bonuses that I spoke about in the beginning is that connection aspect of oxytocin flowing. And that is so key in the beginning after having a baby. I'd just love you to think back to the last time you were in a stressful situation with another person. Perhaps it's someone you're close to, perhaps it's not, perhaps it's somebody who, perhaps it was in a shop, or who knows, whenever you last had, might be with one of your older kids. Last time you had a stressful interaction with somebody, and think about what was going on in your nervous system. How are you feeling in your body? And just then think about how easy or difficult it is to feel connected to that person. Really hard, actually. And actually, even when we're in an altercation with one person, it's hard to feel connected generally to others around us, and that's again because we're in that fight, flight and freeze zone. Now there's another theory which kind of expands our very crude theory of having two arms of the autonomic nervous system, and that's called the polyvagal theory. Not going to go into it more today, but in the polyvagal theory, one of the things that they really emphasize is that when we are in our rest and digest phase, when our vagus nerve, which is the nerve that travels down our body and where the neurotransmitters, or a lot of the neurotransmitters send the messages to the parts of our body and back to our brain, when that is activated and working well, we are at ultimate social connection. We're able to socialize, we're social beings, we're able to connect to others and feel that connection back and forth. And I can't think of many other times in life could be more important to be able to feel that as when we have got our brand new baby in our arms. And so again, by having tools, exercises, and even just knowing that being in our rest and digest, or our default autonomic nervous system, otherwise known as the flow of oxytocin, is one part of that. By knowing that, it enables us to build closer relationships as new parents and also as couples with each other. So there's so many aspects to the flow of oxytocin that really enhance the lives of those who know about it and who are going through this transitional period in their lives. So we've talked about environment, and we've talked about how communication is important. And I just want to emphasize again how important it is to have the right people around, so that whoever is learning to breastfeed, whoever is, going through that early phase of their baby, feels safe, secure, and so that oxytocin is flowing. To protect oxytocin, we need to ensure the right people are around, and not necessarily have the whole side of one family come down and the whole side of another family the next day. That can be a really hard situation to learn to feed your baby in, and it's just thinking about who's there. Make sure it's somebody helpful, make sure it's someone that makes you feel calm, connected, safe, and who isn't sort of uncomfortable about you feeding your baby the way that you're choosing to feed your baby. Having those thoughts in mind are really, really going to help in those early days, weeks, and months. So you're maybe thinking, okay, well, this is all well and good. Yeah, we'd all like to be, zen and calm and relaxed all the time. But the truth is, birth can be really stressful. Those early hours, days, and weeks can be really stressful. If breastfeeding isn't going as expected, it can be incredibly stressful. Let's not put more pressure on parents to relax as well. And of course, I don't want to put pressure on parents either. But that's why we use very small, simple tools that help relax the nervous system and in turn help oxytocin to flow. Small, simple tools like breath work, like short guided relaxations, like having the right conversations around how they're doing, using concepts like growth mindset, talking through the expectations. New breastfeeding parents can be so tough on themselves, so tough on themselves to get it right straight away. And what can happen is when we're not kind to ourselves in those situations, we can start feeling guilt, we can start feeling like a failure. All of those things, not good for us. Again, not good for the flow of oxytocin. So we like to bring compassion to that early experience, whatever's going on, and of course the right level of support as well, because having the right kind of support emotionally and physically can really help with the oxytocin flow as well. So I really hope, if there's a few things you've taken away today, it's that oxytocin is vital to to have that infant feeding relationship that is desired, that it helps with the flow of milk and helps with good positive hormones, that feel good factor. It helps build relationships, and that we can create environments and use simple tools to encourage the flow of oxytocin even more. Really lovely chatting to you about this today. Oxytocin will feed its way through this podcast and this channel time and time again. So I'm really looking forward to talking about it with you more. I will see you all next week. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your spending your time here. If you'd like to know more, a good place to start would be with the Mindful Breastfeeding book. It's available from Amazon around the world, and it's a short interactive guide to mindful breastfeeding with journaling and guided relaxations and just more talk on the importance of having a calm and connected infant feeding experience. You can find our website at www.mindfulbreastfeedingschool.com. The link is below, and on there you'll get access to our practitioners directory. So if you as a parent and you'd like to work with somebody who's trained in mindful breastfeeding skills, as well as all the practical skills as well, to be able to help you on your infant feeding journey, then you will find someone you can work with there. They also run classes as well as one-to-one sessions, so go and have a look around. And you can find access to our courses. So if you are somebody who would like to add mindful breastfeeding to your practice, then please do come and find our courses. We've got free training on there for professionals and birth workers, as well as access to be able to talk to me. So do leave me messages, do get in touch on social media. All the links are below. I look forward to hearing from you.